The Premji Mountains, or the Pamirs, are a mountain range in Central Asia at the junction of the Himalayas with the Tian Shan, Karakoram, Kunlun, and Hindu Kush ranges. They are among the world's highest mountains. The precise extent of the Pamir Mountains is debatable. They lie mostly in Gorno-Badakhshan province of Tajikistan. To the north they join the Tian Shan Mountains along the They Valley of Kyrgyzstan. To the south they border the Hindu Kush Mountains along Afghanistan's Wakhan corridor. To the east they are generally considered to extend to the range that includes China's Kong-Utar, a peak which is included in the eastern Pamirs more often than in the Kunlun Mountains, as Kong-Utar and the Kunlun range are separated by the large Yarkand River Valley. No valley of such significance separates the Pamirs and Kong-Utar, just political boundaries. Name. Since Victorian times, they have been known as the roof of the world, presumably a translation from Persian. In other languages they are called Kyrgyz, Pamir Tulor, Persian, Restku Hay Pamir Tajik, Ristakuri Pamir Pashto, Dar Pamir Gruna, Ugur, Pamir Ezgiliki, Urdu, Pamir Kuistan, Simplified Chinese, Traditional Chinese, Pinyin, Kongling, Wade Giles, Tsun or Onion Range, Dungan, or, written in Shaojing, or. The name Pamir is used more commonly in modern Chinese and loaned as Simplified Chinese, Traditional Chinese, Pinyin, Pamir. Geography. Mountains. The three highest mountains in the Pamirs core are Ismail Somoni Peak, 7,495 meters, Ibn Sina Peak, 7,134 meters, and Peak Korzenevskaya, 7,105 meters. In the eastern Pamirs, China's Kong-Utar is the highest at 7,649 meters. Among the significant peaks of the Pamir Mountains are the following. Remark. The summits of the Kong-Utar and Mutstigata group are in some sources counted as part of the Kunlun, which would make Peak Ismail Somoni the highest summit of the Pamir. Glaciers. There are many glaciers in the Pamir Mountains, including the 77 km long Fedchenko Glacier, the longest in the former USSR and the longest glacier outside the polar regions. Climate covered in snow throughout the year. The Pamirs have long and bitterly cold winters, and short, cool summers. Annual precipitation is about 130 mm, which supports grasslands but few trees. Paleoclimatology. The East Pamir during the Ice Age. The East Pamir, in the center of which the massifs of Musterata and Kong-Utar are situated, shows from the W margin of the Tarim Basin an east-west extension of c. 200 kilometers. Its north-south extension from King Artatar up to the northwest Kunlun foothills amounts to c. 170 kilometers, whilst the up to 21 kilometers long Current Valley glaciers are restricted to mountain massifs exceeding 5,600 meters in height. During the last glacial period, the glacier ice has covered the high plateau with its set-up highland relief, continuing west of Musterata and Kong-Utar. For this glacier area, an outlet glacier has flowed down to the northeast through the GEZ Valley up to c. 1,850 meters ASL and thus as far as to the margin of the Tarim Basin. This outlet glacier received inflow from the Kayaya-Yilak Glacier from the Kong-Utar north flank. For the north adjacent Karabakh Massif, the Oitag Valley Glacier in the same exposition flowed also down up to c. 1,850 meters ASL. At glacial times, the glacier's snow line as altitude limit between glacier nourishing area and ablation zone was lowered about 820 to 1250 altitude meters against today. Under the condition of comparable proportions of precipitation, the results from this a glacial depression of temperature of at least 5 to 7.5 degrees Celsius. Economy. Coal is mined in the west, though sheep herding in upper meadowlands of the primary source of income for the region. Exploration. This section is based on the book by R. Middleton and H. Thomas. The lapis lazuli found in Egyptian tombs is thought to come from the Pamir area in Badakhshan province of Afghanistan. About 138 BC, Zhang Qian reached the Fergana Valley northwest of the Pamirs. Ptolemy vaguely describes a trade route through the area. From about 600 AD, Buddhist pilgrims traveled on both sides of the Pamirs to reach India from China. In 747 a Tang army was on the Wakhan River. There are various Arabo-Chinese reports. Marco Polo may have traveled along the Panj River. In 1602 Bento de Gauze traveled from Kabul to Yarkand and left a meager report on the Pamirs. In 1838 Lieutenant John Wood reached the headwaters of the Pamir River. From about 1868 to 1880, a number of Indians in the British service secretly explored the Panj area. In 1873 the British and Russians agreed to an Afghan frontier along the Panj River. From 1871 to around 1893 several Russian military scientific expeditions mapped out most of the Pamirs. Several local groups asked for Russian protection from Afghan raiders. The Russians were followed by a number of non-Russians including Elias, George Littledale, the Earl of Dunmore, Wilhelm Filchner and Lord Curzon, who was probably the first to reach the Wakhan source of the Oxus River. In 1891 the Russians informed Francis Younghusband that he was on the territory and later escorted a Lieutenant Davidson out of the area. In 1892 a battalion of Russians under Mikhail Ionov entered the area and camped near the present Murgab. In 1893 they built a proper fort there. In 1895 the base was moved to Korog facing the Afghans. In 1928 the last blank areas around the Fetchenko Glacier were mapped out by a German-Soviet expedition under Willy Rikmers. A Pamir, according to Middleton and Thomas, Pamir is also a geological term. A Pamir is a flat plateau, a U-shaped valley surrounded by mountains. It forms when a glacier or ice field melts, leaving a rocky plain. A Pamir lasts until erosion forms soil and cuts down normal valleys. This type of terrain is found in the east and north of the Wakhan, and the east and south of Gorno-Badakhshan, as opposed to the valleys and gorges of the west. Pamirs are used for summer pasture. The Great Pamir is around Lake Zorkal. The Little Pamir is east of this in the far east of Wakhan. The Tadambash Pamir is between Tashkogan and Wakhan west of the Karakoram highway. The Alachur Pamir is around Yashil-Kul on the Gunt River. The Serez Pamir is around the town of Murgab. The Kargash Pamir is south of Lake Karagul. There are several others. The Pamir River is in the southwest of the Pamirs. Discoveries. In the early 1980s, a deposit of gemstone-quality clinahumite was discovered in the Pamir Mountains. It was the only such deposit known until the discovery of gem-quality material in the Taimyr region of Siberia in 2000. Transport. The Pamir Highway, the world's second-highest international road, runs from Dushanbe in Tajikistan to Osh in Kyrgyzstan through the Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Province, and is the isolated region's main supply route. The Great Silk Road crossed a number of Pamir mountain ranges. Tourism. In December 2009, the New York Times featured articles on the possibilities for tourism in the Pamir area of Tajikistan. 2013 proved to be the most successful year ever for tourism in the region, and tourism development continues to be the fastest growing economic sector. The Meta website provides an excellent repository of tourism-related resources for the eastern Pamir region. Strategic position. Historically, the Pamir Mountains were considered a strategic trade route between Kashgar and Kokand on the northern Silk Road and have been subject to numerous territorial conquests. The northern Silk Road in length connected the ancient Chinese capital of Xi'an over the Pamir Mountains towards the west to emerge in Kashgar, before linking to ancient Parthia. In the 20th century, they have been the setting for Tajikistan civil war, border disputes between China and Soviet Union, establishment of US, Russian, and Indian military bases, and renewed interest in trade development and resource exploration.